Yes, my people, welcome back to AFTV. Welcome back to another live. And I'm joined by Laurie today. Laurie, how are you, my guy?
I'm
Good
all right,
to see
man.
you.
Good to see you
I like
too.
to see you jumping in and getting involved. Today's big discussion will be obviously around Ben White and him not being selected for the England squad. We will get to it halfway through the show. But first, I think it's just right to have a little catch up. Obviously, you know, when I do these lives, I like to get you guys involved. So make sure you're involved in the comments and everything going on around the show. But first, just have a catch up of the week so far. Champions League was yesterday. I mean, my highlight was seeing how mad Haaland's that goal that he scored and how crazy, and big up John Stones as well, it was a good goal from him as well, but how crazy things have been in that. And yeah, man, it's been a while since I've been on these lives. I've been away, but I'm back and I'm happy to be joining you. But so far, everything all good. We're still top of the league.
Still
Something
top.
to mention.
Yeah,
We haven't
still
played for a
top.
while, but we're still top of the league.
And of course, with no football last weekend, we're looking forward to domestic football this weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting, man. Big game at the weekend.
Very big. You confident?
Yeah. No.
What's the
but
pause for?
That's a legit question. That's a legit
Of course.
question. I mean,
Brentford
listen.
they're not a joke team.
I mean, you remember what they did to us last season at
Exactly.
their place, and they're in form now. And obviously, the catalyst is one of the guys we'll be talking about later, Ivan Toney, who I'm a fan of.
We will discuss him.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a good game, and it's not just Ivan Toney. They've got Mbuemo, they've got the lad at the back there. I forget, it's the left back. What's his name? So a lot of people saying he's unlucky to be left out of the England squad. His name's going to come to me in a minute, but yeah,
They'll let you know in the comments as well. They'll pop up. But go on.
Yeah. So Brentford will be a stern test.
They will.
Stern test and a good game.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Ethan Pinnock's obviously in there as well, good player as well. They got some good. They got a lot of players are injured actually. There's the Norse guard, I believe, he obviously scored against us last time. I believe he's injured, but they have got a lot of injuries because I was doing some research on their team news this week. But will be a tough challenge. Brentford are a good side, and like you said, we will get to Ivan Toney because, hey, I'm a big fan of Ivan Toney as well. It'd been nice to have seen him in an Arsenal shirt, but he's in tremendous form so far currently in his Brentford campaign at the moment this season. Now I want to get a poll into the chat straight away. Is Ben White disrespected? It could be yes or no, very simple. Let us know in the comments. I see people saying he's overrated, some people saying don't be silly, he's class and whatnot. So let's just get this in straight away and get the involvement. I'll return back to the poll once we get through some of the news. I'm going to start with, just quickly, briefly, just so for everyone that is listening and watching, the women's football does return for Arsenal. Their first game is tomorrow at home against Brighton in the WSL. I believe it's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Meadow Park. So for any of you guys want to get tickets, there's still tickets available. You can head down to that. Go support the women. I mean, off the back of a Euro winning campaign, some of the players were, some of the Arsenal players were playing for England as well. So they'll be in good spirits, and hopefully this season we can take it home. So yeah, we can take the WSL home. So that is just some of the news there. So the women's football does return for Arsenal tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. And then next thing I'm going to bring up, I wanted to quickly discuss this, and I want to just get people's thoughts and feelings. FIFA 23 is about to release. The player cards have been released, the player ratings. And I've got some of the young talent from Arsenal. I've got some of their ratings on that will be coming up on the screen right now. So we've got them here. We're going to start with person who ranked 23rd out of the young players in FIFA is Martinelli with 78. Okay, the 11th position for the Arsenal young talent is William Saliba. He's ranked 80, which I think is very high as well. And then lastly is Bukayo Saka, who's ranked 5th out of the young talent. And he's 82, so very high. This just leads me to a question, Laurie, and I'm going to bring you involved in this and everyone else as well. I saw a show, what's the show? On YouTube actually, and I was speaking about is Saka world class and whatnot, and then they were kind of disrespecting, in my opinion, Saka, and I think he gets quite a bit of disrespect as well. I know we're going to move on to Ben White at some point, but I think Saka gets a lot of disrespect saying that he's been off it. A lot of people keep saying he hasn't been the level that we expect of him recently, and I think he's been superb since the season has started. So I want to ask you, Martinelli, Emile Smith-Rowe or Bukayo Saka? Firstly, who's your favourite out of those three? Who do you think is the best player out of those three for you? They're young talents coming through at Arsenal, and I want to get everyone else in the comments and figure out, because it's going to be that question: who's the best player for you out of those three, and then who has the highest ceiling? Because I believe those are two different questions.
Not easy questions, man. You kind of put me on the spot with that. I would say out of those three, for natural talent, fifth, sheer footballing ability, I would have to say Saka. I think for athleticism, probably go for Martinelli. But That's not to say that Smith Rowe is not up there.
It's very political, this answer.
No, that's just my first impressions. I mean, Martinelli, you think of his running in behind, his speed, his power, and stuff like that. Saka appears to have a bit more guile, doesn't he?
Yeah.
A bit more skills. And then Smith Rowe is a goal scorer from midfield. He kind of reminds me of kind of latter-day Lampard and them, man. You know, when they arrive late and
in the box,
goals.
get the
So, yeah, listen, man, all three are quality players.
Political. You're gonna give me an answer for one who thinks that out of the three is best,
right?
Don't worry, they're not gonna hate you if you say
ceiling wise. I would
close.
have to say Saka.
Ceiling wise, Saka.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, not much difference in age between the three of them. Saka's probably the youngest, isn't he? Or is it Martinelli?
I believe. Martin. I think it is Saka actually, because he's only just recently turned. I believe he just turned 20 recently. But yeah, I believe it is Saka. So ceiling wise, you're gonna say 21. You're going to say Bukayo Saka?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards Saka, but, you know, I don't wish to in any way diminish the other two.
No, of course not. Of course, it's only obvious.
I'm just trying to answer
the levels are very high with what we're debating between. It's not like we're saying
we're
this
talking
one's
about
terrible.
serious talent.
Serious talent, top young talent who I think has been very effective for Arsenal. And for me, ceiling-wise, which is, again, it's different to who I think is the better player overall. I think Saka is, for me, the better player, and I think since I've been watching him, his decision making, the fact that he gets targeted for rival teams to defend, but the way he gets out of certain scenarios is superb. I think he's so good on the ball, and he does get underrated because sometimes he goes quiet, but his ball retention is a joke. So for me, Saka is the better of the three.
When you say a joke, you mean?
Oh, it's very good.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, it's a compliment. This is not me saying.
You're a lot younger than me, so I've got to make sure I understand what you're trying to say. Because in old money, if you say someone's a joke, that means that you're, you know what I mean, you're cussing them out.
No, I'm definitely not doing that.
Nowadays saying, that's a joke, he's sick. Those are like terms of praise, whereas man say back in the day, you're a joke. That's like a pejorative term. But anyway, I hear you, man.
I understand. That's
that being said, though, I think it's fair to say, if we're being honest, we must, be honest and say that Saka, so far, only 6-7 games in, has not quite hit the levels that he'd hit in the season before, when he was pretty much our go-to man at times in the season. But that is not to say he's not played well. He has played well. It's just that he's not hit those high levels. And the problem you have when you've been so outstanding previously is that people unfairly expect you to perform at those levels week in, week out. And if you don't quite hit those heights, people will say, oh, you know what I mean? They will be quite critical of it. Whereas obviously myself and you, people who know football, not to say that people out there don't know football, but if you understand the dynamics of football and the way physiology works, you know that these guys cannot hit those levels every single week unless you're a Messi or Ronaldo back in the day.
But is that what you think fans are going to want from Bukayo Saka? Because do you want him to score more goals? Scored 1 goal, 2 assists so far. Is that what you expect them to want from him to hit these sort of levels and be? Because he's going to get a lot of game time. He was the most featured player last season for Arsenal, so he's going to get time, even with the lights we have. But does he need more goals and more assists? Because when I watch him, like I said, it's the little things I see in Bukayo Saka. His decision making, the way he beats the player, the way he creates chances for other people. He starts a lot of the moves. What he did to Malacia at United, like he chiefed him up, and that's. But it's the truth. But that's what I like to see from my players, and I think he is very consistent. I think yes, we might want to see more numbers on the board for him, but for what he brings to this Arsenal side, I think he's superb. And when people say he hasn't hit the levels that I expect, and he's been quiet, I think that's disrespect to him, because I think he does be involved in a lot of the build-up for Arsenal and what we create.
Well, I certainly wouldn't say he's been quiet, but I would say, if I'm being honest, he's not quite hit the levels he was hitting last season in terms of performance. And of course numbers, but then it's early in the season. Yeah,
it's very early. But Martinelli's had a really good start to this. I know there'll be people in the comments saying, well, Martinelli's his goal record so far this season, I believe it's 3, and he's gotten involved in a lot of goals as well. There'll be maybe recency bias more on the side of Martinelli, and I see Martinelli as a person who probably has a higher ceiling.
You think Martinelli's got the highest?
I think he's got the highest ceiling, even though he is older than Bukayo Saka. I just think there's more to his game. I think you were seeing it at the beginning of the season. Again, his goal tally started very fast, and he's got goals on the board. So I believe out of those three now, I haven't spoken about Emile Smith-Rowe too much. I know there's a lot of favourites of people that like Emile Smith-Rowe, but I think Martinelli and Saka are so great in this Arsenal side. But that's definitely not to take away from Emile Smith-Rowe. Obviously, he's injured currently and come back
he's
from
been
injury.
unlucky
So
with injury.
that's what it is. I think it's because he's been riddled with a little bit of injury. But last season there was a lot of conversation about Carragher saying he's the best on the ball, dribbling and whatnot, and he went for a really good season of coming off the bench and getting goals for the Arsenal side. 10 goals last season. So got to big him up. He's got immense talent. But out of the three, I say the ceiling is the highest for Martinelli. I think player with the most ability right now, who is for me Bukayo Saka, and
all-round ability,
all-round player for me.
As
Bukayo
I said,
Saka.
for athleticism and explosivity, pace and power and stuff, you would have to say that of the three, Martinelli is the one that stands out. Smith-Rowe, goal getter from midfield. That's a very important role he plays in the team. But you know what it is like, Cecil? So football, I always say, is one of those "what have you done for me lately" sports. You can be as good as you want. So that's recency bias then, is what you're saying? So you're just thinking of it's just the way football fans, not just Arsenal fans, football fans are fickle by nature.
I was going to say, what are you trying to say about the fan? But you got that.
No, it's not just Arsenal fans.
No, it's all fans.
I'm guilty of it at times as well.
I am, of course I am, yeah.
A player that you look up to, you want him to do well. If he's not quite hit those levels, you come away from the game disappointed. You think, he wasn't very good today, blah, blah, blah. There might be extenuating circumstances for that. You might be carrying an injury. He might have been out the team, so he's coming up to the speed of the game. There's all sorts of reasons why. But football fans, you know what I mean, they're very unforgiving. You know what I mean? They don't really care. They just want you to perform week in, week out. That's it. End of. You know what I mean? That's the way football fans tend to approach things. And if you're not hitting those heights, I mean, let's face it, sometimes you can be a victim of your own successes, can't you?
Yeah, 100%.
You're having a really good run, and then for whatever reason you drop off, or it could be injury, tiredness, whatever. People are not going to really take that into account, are they? Not too many people anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone's just going to wonder why you didn't score or why you didn't assist, or people are going to say, look, he's not scored in his last 3 games, man, drop him. And you know what I mean? It's really ruthless at the top, man. It
is really ruthless, but saying that, we will go to the England squad, but we see. I was going to talk about Maguire there. You say he's in the defenders for England. He's been called up. Now we're going to have to get to it at some point. We'll get to the England squad, but I'm going to take some comments. I was just talking about recency bias in that comment there. A lot of people say Martinelli is the best. Says Saksham says Martinelli is the best.
It depends on what facet of the game you're looking at. I was very careful to break it down. I said they're all seriously talented individuals. That underpins everything else I say. But for explosivity, pace and power, I'm looking at Martinelli as the three that stands out. If I'm looking at skill, guile, taking players on and stuff like that, natural ability with the ball, I'm thinking Saka. If I'm thinking goals from midfield and stuff like that, so I'm thinking Smith-Rowe.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how quick Saka is as well off the mark.
No, they're all got pace.
Yeah, because I remember doing a Stats Sports. I remember doing the advert, and they had obviously the vests on, and they were measuring, and Saka came out with the fastest off the mark. Yeah.
Sometimes it's pace over a certain. So when I talk about explosivity, right, and you will know this, you played the game at a high level. So when I'm talking about explosivity, I'm talking about guys who, from a standing start over about the first 20, 30 yards, they're very explosive. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is why you will see even in athletics, you have your 60-yard dashes. They can sometimes beat the 100-metre guys, but that extra 40, 50 metres, that's when the other guys can catch them up. So what I'm saying is, over those first 20 yards or so, Martinelli on a standing start, I'll probably back to beat Saka, but maybe Saka is quicker over a longer distance. I'm not sure about that, by the way. Don't come at me. But that's how it looks to me.
Listen,
Martinelli looks a very explosive
player. Yeah, he does. Do you know what it is? It's sometimes just the player's running style.
Yeah,
can make them look,
exactly.
Especially when you're watching, when you're in the grounds in the stadiums, their running style. Like Haaland looks like he wants to beat up the air when he runs, so he looks quicker. Martinelli, I think he's very tight and nippy, but he is very quick. He looks very fast. Saka like glides.
More graceful.
Yeah, Saka glides, so it doesn't look like he's running as fast. But trust me, off the mark, he's powerful and he's quick. That gets underrated as well. Jason says Martinelli is clearly the best of the crop as well. Of that crop, sorry.
Yeah, but you say that, but I remember last season some people were expressing disappointment in Martinelli, so he doesn't get enough goals. You know what I mean? And
100%. Robbie, I think Robbie was on that as well. Yeah.
So that sort of alludes to what you were saying about recency bias. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, this
season he started off scoring,
which is good. That's an improvement. Which is Which again, that goes to me talking about his ceiling in the sense that he's very good at picking up and learning, and he probably took note of that as well last season, that he needs to add more goals to his game, and he started the season superbly well. So then,
but when I'm talking about ceiling, I'm talking about, like you're saying, projecting forward 5-6 years time. That's what I think about ceiling. How far can he go in the future? Yeah. Not so much now. No,
100%. That's what the comment is off for. Quickly here, I also got A says Saka's football IQ is crazy. I have to agree with that massively as well. I think he understands the game so well and his strengths and how to be a player. Let's go to
for his A-level qualification.
Also very good. Very bright.
And that shows itself on the pitch.
Yeah. And just to highlight that as well, I don't know if you guys have been watching. I've been loving this, by the way, the Hale End Academy documentary, really, basically, obviously the academy. And we've got two players actually that go to Eton School and also play for Arsenal. They speak about how difficult it is to juggle their studies with football, but they also got to look down on as well, coming from Eton, that they were private school boys and whatnot. But again, it's good to see that in our academy we have educated young players and balancing that with their football life as well. And hopefully they go all the way and we see them in the Arsenal football.
I think Saka, they said, is an A-star.
He is. A-star. I think he got 9. No, he got 9 A-star GCSEs, and in his A-levels as well, got really flying results as well in his A-levels.
Student.
You can see.
So that tells me that he's a high achiever. B, he's flexible. You know what I mean? He can use his brain. He can use his physical attributes, and also that suggests to me a guy with that's able to pick things up quickly and's got good composure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean 100%, but what we're seeing in him are traits that when you look at him you think, yeah, that's why he's a good decision maker, that's why he's got a good young brain. For such a young player, he's got a good brain on him, you know what I mean? Things like that come to mind. Not to say that the others haven't, but if we're discussing Saka, it's not hard to make that leap, is it?
No.
You think of him as a very intelligent kid, you think, yeah, that can translate onto the football pitch.
Yeah, and you can clearly see that in the way you can clearly see that his decision
and maturity as well, by the way.
100%. Quickly, Ash here with Super Chat says White is better than every English centre-back except Stones. Now that I'm going to have to agree with him. We'll have to get into that in a second. We're going to go straight to that in a little bit. Devon Carr says with his Super Chat says England is full at right back. Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Walker are all going. Ben White doesn't really have a spot with how we've been playing him. We'll discuss that as well when we come to it.
I've got some thoughts on that.
I know, I'm sure you do. X-Cool1 TV says, Cecil, good to see you back. I want your cap. Big up, man. It feels good. It's good to be back. It is good to be back in the building. And like I said, there'll be plenty more AFTV content coming your way, so look out for all of that. A says, Brazilian squad elevates his ceiling above Saka's. Interesting. Hey, give me your reasons behind that. Are you saying because if Martinelli...
he's not in the latest Brazil squad.
He's not. Martinelli is not in it, but he still has a chance, obviously, being in it for the World Cup. But he hasn't been. They haven't been. Our three Brazilians haven't been selected. But let me know. I'll look for your comment on why you think that elevates his ceiling above Saka's. Is that because Saka goes to England? I mean, what we saw last time in the Euros,
I think the point he's trying
back.
to make is if he can get into the Brazilian squad's such a talented squad, let's face it, then that is what I'm imagining he's saying. That elevates him above. I don't necessarily agree with that, to be honest.
Okay. Dave Jordan, big up Dave Jordan. Says some people think Calamity Gabby is better than White. Now we're gonna speak about that as well. Let's go into it now. So we got the poll in the chat that I posed at the beginning of the show. 70 of us said yes, he is disrespected. I also got involved in the poll as well. I believe he is disrespected, and only 30% say no. Now we're gonna go through the England squad. You've got it there. Just show him your paper quickly, Laura. Just show him your paper. I've got to show. Sorry, just put it on the wide quickly. This is. I've got to show. You gotta love Laurie's efforts here. He's printed off the squad. All the players' headshots are there. He's got the team, the manager. I love it. Organisation, preparation is key.
Old school, man.
Old school coming with the paper.
But I've also got it on my phone. So
just in case the pictures don't do well enough, he's got it on his phone.
Multitasking, bro.
All right, let's go into this. This is going to be the news of the day, and it's going to be a big discussion, really. I'm going to quickly run through the England 28-man squad in full. Goalkeepers Dean Henderson, Nick Pope and Aaron Ramsdale. Aaron Ramsdale in there, brilliant. I didn't realise.
This could be what people are terming as a save-off for number 2, isn't it? Because let's face it, Jordan Pickford is the...
But he's not there. He's not there.
I know, but he will be. He might be carrying an injury or something.
Okay, but then...
I would imagine the manager's doing there is looking at those three and think who's next in line.
And for me, it's not my bias. It's definitely... Listen, it's not my bias. Dean Henderson, by the way, done really well as well. Saw him save some penalties as well at the start of the season. Very good player. But Ramsdale, depending on what style of play you're going for when it comes to England, playing out the back, he is, with his feet, better than those two, in my opinion. Completely overhauls them.
Wouldn't disagree with that at all.
Commanding his area and vocality, like how vocal he is, he is more of a leader as well, out of those two, in my opinion. Shot stopping, there's going to be an argument there for all three keepers. But yeah, Aaron Ramsdale for me.
You know what it is, right? It's very interesting you should say that, because it's people have different views on things. So it's kind of what you're looking for. Do you prefer a goalkeeper who is good at distribution and playing out from the back, in which case Ramsdale would trump those other two, I would have thought? Or are you looking at a goalkeeper that makes saves and can command his box and stuff like that?
Yeah,
in which case you might argue that the other two, certainly Nick Pope, is a real threat to Ramsdale in that position. Because I think it's also fair to say, I mean, we spoke about it with Saka, Ramsdale as well. A few of the fans, more than a few I've spoken to, have said that Ramsdale this season has not quite hit the heights he hit last season as well. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
No, I know what you're saying. I think I see it in the comments there as well. There's Smith says Ramsdale scares me every game, because there's moments in games where you feel like Ramsdale's having a blinder, and then it seems like he just even loses concentration, or I want to say he gets bored, but I don't want to say that because that's just untechnical of me saying he gets bored. But
bored is a little bit disrespectful.
Of course. So this is why I don't want to say that. But it just seems like there'll be a moment of lapse of concentration from Ramsdale of recent. But again, the things I mentioned at the beginning, the things he's better with his feet, his distribution, the way he commands his area, how vocal he is, the leadership qualities from the back. I think he trumps the other two. But you're right, there is sometimes a lapse in concentration for Aaron Ramsdale. I mean, I can't tell you I watched Nick Pope and Dean Henderson intensely to know if that happens in their game as well. But I understand that for Aaron Ramsdale. But for me, he's a player, depending on what Gareth Southgate wants to go with from the back and how he wants to play, decides what goalkeeper he puts as his number 2, in my opinion, when it gets to the World Cup. But to be fair, if I'm honest, I don't rate Jordan Pickford. That's the truth as well. I don't think he should be. Pickford, do you? Yeah, out of the three, I don't think. I think there's an argument there for number 1 and 2.
Why don't you rate Pickford?
I don't think he's a keeper that. I don't know. I'd like to ask why you rate him. I think at times he's rash.
Yeah, he can be rash.
He can be very rash. I think sometimes he lets the occasion get the better of him. Yeah, just sometimes he's. I know he's trying to work on his mentality. I remember him doing an interview saying he does counselling and stuff. He gets aggression at times as well, and he can lose his head. Things like that are just a bit worrying for me as a fan watching, my country play. So for me, Pickford, I would like to see out of the number 1 and 2 out of those 3 keepers there. But that's my opinion. We spent a lot of time on keepers. I'm just going to run through the team quickly. Defenders that have been
just quickly though.
Go on.
In response to what you were saying about Pickford, you are right in raising those concerns. However, I think he, in terms of shot stopping, his agility and the ability to get down and make crucial saves, I think he's probably the best out of those 4.
Okay.
Overall. I mean, we're talking fine margins there.
Yeah.
But I do like Pickford. I think he's on his day, he's definitely it can save you a game or win you a game, whichever way you want to look at it.
On his day, it's one of those phrases that we hear a lot in football. On his day.
I don't know if you saw the Merseyside derby the other day.
I did. He was outstanding. He was saving it. Okay, fair. That's a good point. Defenders, we're going to run through them quickly. So Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Conor Cody, Eric Dyer, Mark Gahey, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Fikio
Tomori.
Blimey, I went a little bit lost there. Kieran Trippier. Sorry, Kyle
Wrong
Walker.
country, mate.
I know. Tell me Scotland that. Kieran Trippier and then Kyle Walker there. Midfielders is Jude Bellingham, scored yesterday as well. Great, had a good game in my opinion. Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, James Ward-Prowse in the midfield, getting a call up again, and
I think he deserves it.
Yeah, listen,
Ward-Prowse is,
dead ball specialist, can be utilised. Whether we go to the World Cup again will be another conversation. I like to speak to people as well, listening and watching, and their thoughts of anyone that missed out in the midfield for England, because me and a friend of mine we went through the midfielders in England who could have been selected, because I think James Ward-Prowse is a bit of a shoo-in, but it was really difficult to think of other names.
I think with Ward-Prowse, he offers you something different. Obviously, we all know about his dead ball ability, and I think in games, especially in tight games, something like that could prove crucial.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that the pace that the England team has nowadays, those guys tearing it down and on the wing and winning fouls. Who better to step up and take other penalties and free kicks than James Ward-Prowse? I can't think of anyone in that England squad who's better. The stats tell you that as well. So I think he's there on merit.
Forwards that are going are Tammy Abraham, Jared Bowen, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane, Bukayo Saka, Raheem Sterling and Ivan Toney. Now, let's go straight to defenders. Let's talk about Ben White not being selected, Laurie. Now, for me, before we came live today, me, your brother was with the presenters, James Turkish, and we spoke about Brentford, and I said, this is just my feeling and what I would have selected. Gabriel to be dropped and put Ben White centre back. I know, and I think it took a lot of people by surprise. I think
I weren't in that conversation.
Yeah, well, we can discuss it here. We can discuss it live. People can have their thoughts and feelings as well. Dropped obviously sounds harsh, but I just think he should be replaced for Ben White in centre back. This time round against Ivan Toney. I know last time Ivan Toney did bully Ben White, but I think Ben White, I trust him. I do trust him. I had my doubts about him when he first signed, and there was very much question marks over Ben White. But I think right back he's been solid, and I think he does need to get some minutes back in centre back as well, especially if Takahiro Tomiyasu is returning, just to remind people how solid he is. I think he reads the game very well. I read an interview that he did on the Arsenal website as well, which came out, I believe it was yesterday, speaking about how that game did affect him against Brentford last season, and how he wants to kind of redeem himself on that. So, and I think Gabriel as well recently, and I'm a big fan of Gabriel Magalhaes, big fan. I think it's on record, many people know, but there has been some times recently where I'm like, oh, it's not good. It's not been good for Gabriel.
You mean the game where he gave away a goal and then went down the other end and scored the winner?
Of course he scored. Of course he scored. But no, there's been other moments as well where I just think he's been a bit sloppy. And I think Ben White, for me, especially with a Brentford side that they've scored the most goals outside the box this season, for me, Ben White reads the game so well that it'd be nice to put him alongside Saliba and see how that works against Brentford. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
But
well, listen, my response to that is, yeah, you are right in a lot of what you say there. Ben White has done nothing much wrong. Let's have that right. And it could be argued that he's had a better start to the season.
And we're back. Apologies there. I think we had some technical issues there. Now, I'm going to let Laurie finish off his point, but I do see MCA quickly, 808, say, Cecil, you forget that Arteta always wants a left-footed centre-back and a right-footed centre-back in defence.
He's stolen my thunder, but
White and Saliba won't work. Now, this is what Robbie also posed this as well when he said that, but I just... for me, I do like to see Ben White back in his position, but obviously we can't drop Saliba. But, that is just something I would be interested to see what Arteta does go with on Sunday. But go on, carry on your point.
I suspect he's going to go with the greater physicality of Gabriel to try and negate what Brentford bring up top, especially with Ivan Toney, but in Mbeumo as well. And around the team. And by the way, the guy that I was trying to remember that I didn't remember earlier was Rico Henry.
Right.
He's been outstanding for them.
Good player.
Yeah, he is. But let's focus on further up the pitch. Ivan Toney. Listen, we know Ivan Toney by now. Very good player. Not just a goal scorer. He can do everything. Even the dark arts. He's strong guy. He's quick. Pace, power, in behind, good in the air. very good all-round striker, tends to do very well against Arsenal. Even when he doesn't score, he's still a pain in the derriere for the defenders. He will affect the game on Sunday, I have no doubt, so we need to be ready for that. Now, if you're asking me a straight choice between Ben White and Gabriel in order to try and deal with that Ivan Toney potential problem, then I'm going to go for Gabriel. However, as I said a few minutes ago, Ben White, he hasn't done much wrong. In fact, he's made a good start. He's been played out of position, and he's done well. And he's a very good player. But I wouldn't drop Gabriel right now, to be honest.
Okay, you just spoke about there Ben White being playing out of position, done well. Do you think Ben White playing right back for Arsenal has hindered his opportunity to be selected for England?
You make a very good point. Because sometimes, as we've seen with players in other teams, if you're one of those players that can play in different positions, you are sometimes a victim of your own flexibility, or you know what I mean? And that can cost you, you know what I mean? Because you know, you are no longer deemed as a specialist in your own position. You are seen as somebody that can play here, that can play there. But the manager, whoever that manager might be, might think, no, I want the specialist centre back in there, or the specialist right back in there, so I'm going to put Tomiyasu in. You know what I mean? So it can compromise you a little bit. It should be something that more strings to your bow. You would have thought, it gives you the advantage.
Right.
But it doesn't always work out that way. And like I said, managers will often look at the teams, look at the strengths and weaknesses of the players involved and decide to go with that. So I was saying that had it be me, Sunday's game, I'm looking at the strengths and weaknesses and the qualities, etc., of a Gabriel, and I'm lining him up against Ivan Toney, and I'm seeing how that measures up. Likewise, Ben White. And if I'm the manager, I'm tempted to go with Gabriel because I think he's got greater physicality, and I think he'll be able to control Toney a bit more than, say, Ben White would. That's not to denigrate Ben White. I want to make that clear. I am not dissing him. I'm just saying that, to me, Gabriel measures up more favourably against someone like Ivan Toney than Ben White does.
Okay. That's fine. That was more heading towards, obviously, the game on Sunday against Brentford. But England, if we're looking at England, Laurie, Ben White, and if you're in Gareth Southgate's shoes, are you saying, like I said, is it hindering him the fact that he's seeing him play right back and doubting his ability centre-back wise is why he hasn't been selected? Because if I'm being honest, we had the super chat earlier, if we look at the defenders, bar I think John Stones, I think Ben White is better, even at centre-back, even though he hasn't played there all season, better at centre-back than a lot of the players that have been selected. Is that down to Gareth Southgate just trusting these players because he's been through the campaign with them? He trusts in sort of players like Harry Maguire, even though he's only played, by the way, 3 games this season, 1 off the bench, whereas Ben White has played all 6 matches this season. Do you think, you know, that Gareth Southgate's kind of going with what he trusts and what he believes in? Because, listen, Ben White for me over Maguire every day.
And
Connor Cody, I'm with you there. Eric Dyer as well for me. Obviously, Mark Gahey, I think he's a very good player, actually. I think, so I want to give him some respect to there. But I still think Ben White, even in that position, I put him over him. So,
I think
Tomori, I like Tomori as well.
Yeah. He's having a good time in Italy.
I think Tomori's very good. But again, Ben White trumps a lot of those defenders for me. What do you think?
There's a lot of quality in that. When you look through that lineup, man, it's there's some real quality footballers in that lineup in the defence there. Right, I would agree with you. I think he's a bit unlucky not to be given, not to be a member of that squad when you consider that people like Connor Cody is in there.
Yeah.
And Harry Maguire especially. I mean, that one would have me shaking my head. Although,
is it down to trust?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Because Southgate, you know how international managers are. Like I said, they've gone through the campaign together. Obviously, got to a final. And a lot of people at the time were raving about Harry Maguire when he was playing internationally. Same with Luke Shaw as well. Yeah. So is that just down to that?
Yeah, I think it is. The manager is on the record as saying that he will pick players that's performed well for him in the past that he feels he can trust. Harry Maguire, despite what the naysayers say about him, and I actually do think Harry Maguire is a good player. Poor run of form from Man United, which led to him being dropped. But in an England shirt, he's never really let England down, has he? In fact, if you go back to the previous World Cup, he was one of the stars of the World Cup for England. So I think there's a sense of loyalty there where the manager, Gareth Southgate's probably taken him to one side and said, look, you've had a difficult time in domestic football, but for me, you've been brilliant. I'm going to stand by you. And, you know what I mean, that will, if you're Harry Maguire, you will welcome that. You'll think, you know what, I really want to play for this guy because he's put his trust in me, and I appreciate that. Similarly with Conor Cody, he's come in to the England setup under Gareth Southgate, and he's done well. He's not let England down. And so again, Gareth Southgate's probably thinking that, you know, it's a guy that I've brought in. He's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing for me to really drop him. But if you're Ben White and you're looking at that, you are going to feel quite hard done by.
He's going to feel aggrieved.
Yeah, because he's also been in the England squad. I know he's not really featured that much, but he's also been a member of the squad.
Yeah,
he's had less game time than Conor Cody. I just think it's just seniority and rank. And
I think that's where the disrespect for Ben White comes in, because he's going to be looking at, I'm an Arsenal Football Club, I'm playing week in, week out. He has had good performances. He's going to feel a bit disrespected.
But he's not been playing in those centre-back positions.
No, he hasn't. But like we said, that should be more strings to your bow. It should be a benefit that you can play so well in so many positions and not let the stand of your side slip. I mean, with Arsenal,
it could be that the manager's looking at and think in those right back and left back positions we're very strong, which they are.
So
he's not going to get in ahead of Reece James and Trent and Kyle Walker and him, man, is he? Let's be honest. Even as Arsenal fans, we know that's not going to happen. So that's why I was saying sometimes you can be a victim of your own successes, a victim of your own flexibility.
Which is a shame.
The inclusion of Eric Dyer, Mark Guay is quite interesting, because I'm reliably informed that both of those two for their clubs are playing really well. Tottenham fans tell me that Eric Dyer's been outstanding so far this season. Gay, or whatever his name, how you want to pronounce it. Again.
Yeah.
Solid. Whereas Arsenal fans, we might look at those two and think, "Come on, man."
I think we're being fair, though.
You have to appreciate that in their positions, in the Tottenham and Crystal Palace teams, respectively, they've come in and they've done very well. So that might push them up the pecking order ahead of Ben White, who's not really been seen in that position yet for Arsenal.
I look at these centre backs and I think, who is the ball playing centre back here?
Stones.
That's the only one. So and my argument was, everyone, I think Ben White goes ahead.
Harry Maguire.
Well, there you go. And I think Ben White goes ahead of a lot of the centre backs that have been selected, bar Stones. So, and a perfect partnership, Stones and Ben White would be lovely, or someone else who's a bit more physical. But when it comes to ball playing and playing out from the back, and if you've got someone behind you in goal that likes to play out from the back, you've got a nice ball playing back line there. So very interesting thing is selected. I think Ben White doesn't get the props he deserves, and that's coming from me, who always had the jury out on Ben White. Go on.
Yeah. I think it may have been, a straight shootout in the manager's brain between John Stones and Ben White, because if you look at that lineup, if you look at that lineup, those two are kind of very similar, innit? Like you said yourself, ball playing centre halves, bit of flair on the ball, can bring it out, good range of passing, and they're kind of similar the way they play. Their philosophies on football are kind of similar, so it could be that Gareth Southgate and his management team have looked at. I'm sure Ben White was under consideration, but they probably looked at him and thought, well, if I'm going to go for a player of that ilk, I'm probably going to go with John Stones over Ben White at this time. Because don't forget, in previous squads, John Stones has not been selected, and people have said, why is he not playing? So, and he plays for. But
it's a quality player. It's a quality player that you're missing out on there. FFTV says White has not been picked as he's been playing right back, and he's not getting in the squad as a right back. It's simple.
Well, we just said that. Yeah, we just said. That.
We're just saying that him playing right back should have a string to his bow, so that he can be very versatile. And I think centre back wise, he's better than.
He does have a string to his bow. However, if you're talking about specialist central defender,
but I still think he's better. But I think he's better than some of those centre backs that have been selected, whether he's specialist or not. Maguire. We've gone through that. We've just gone through that. Conor Cody, I think he's a better centre back than him as well. I think Ben White gets disrespected. I'm speaking passionately on this, considering I've been a critic of Ben White. I think he defends very well.
Do you blame the manager for?
No,
keeping faith in Harry Maguire.
No, because I do understand Gareth Southgate.
So that's the predicament he's in.
I understand Gareth Southgate in the sense of he's thinking of I don't want to say loyalty, but he's thinking of what he knows and what he's got from these players in the previous campaign, and is probably why he's gone with these sort of players. Of course, there's still time for them to change when it gets to the World Cup full selection, but that's what he's got. I'm sure that's what he's going by, because all these players are being tried. I don't think many of them are being tried and tested. A lot of these are players that he knows and he's aware of. So
I think the one that I'm looking at there is not even so much Harry Maguire, because although we all know, you know what I mean, you must have been sleeping under a rock if you've not noticed that Harry Maguire
he hasn't even been playing
and not been playing.
Yeah,
he's been used sparingly since the new manager came in. But yeah, the one that kind of leaps up the page to me is Connor Cody. I'm thinking, to me, Ben White is the superior player. So I'm looking at that position. Why him over Ben White? However, as I said before, again, Connor Cody's come in. He's actually had some game time for England recently. And by all accounts, the manager was pleased with what he saw from him. Yeah. So he's probably thinking, I brought you in the team. You've shown me a certain level of performance that I'm happy with. I'm going to continue with you and see how you go.
Okay, let's dedicate, thank you for that, Laurie. Let's dedicate the last kind of minutes of the show to the discussion about, is international football good for the players? Because there's going to be an argument to say, listen, we saw, I know this is more African Cup of Nations, Aubameyang when he was with Arsenal going to Gabon and the rough sleeping and whatnot. Of course, that won't happen at the high levels of like the international when it comes to England, but things like the players returning last year from the Euros and the racism they got and how that can affect certain players mentally, back in the past when David Beckham got recarded and how that affected his career and whatnot. International football, for you and people listening and watching, good for the players? As an Arsenal fan, do you want to see your players go away to international duty and play for their countries, their respective countries? Is it good for them? Is it something you want to see as a fan? Because as a fan, I get the arguments against it. But for me, that's a fan and understands a player that would love to, represent his country, how big it is for their family, how it goes down in the record books, how you try and get as many caps as possible, how long that lasts for you in your future, the positive feel you have when you return back to your club after international duty. For me, it's a good thing, and I think it's the best for the players. But for you as a fan and people watching, listening, let's do a poll as well, please. I love a poll. Is it international duty, or playing internationally, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think largely it's a good thing. Obviously, there's a balance that has to be struck, because these players are employed by the clubs. That's their first and foremost employer. And sometimes some of the players, they will play for countries where they have to travel thousands of miles across the world. It's a big inconvenience. Sometimes the arrangements for their travel is not always what you would expect. So that can cause problems. However, I would counter that by saying this. You speak to 99% of players and they will say to you that the biggest honour they have in the game is to represent their country at international level. So I don't think those players should be denied that, first and foremost. And also, I quite like the fact that the players playing for Arsenal, if they've deemed worthy of international cap, that's good for the club to see that, you have got players in your team that are representing their countries. That is a good sign. I'll be more worried if you have a first 11 and none of them are playing for their respective countries. But they probably tend to look at that.
But there's an argument.
Sideways.
Yeah, there's an argument to say, which I'm kind of contradicting myself here, that obviously the 3 Brazilians haven't been picked for their international duties for Arsenal. And for me, that's a benefit, because we got a tough run in October. We got a tough run. That's me being biased, of course. But I want my players to be 100% at it, 100% fit for those games coming in October. Obviously, North London Derby on the 1st of October. We got City or Liverpool and City in that sort of time as well. So, selfishly, I think it's a bad thing for this little international, for them not to go. Yeah, obviously, when it comes to the World Cup, I want my players to represent them, because some players make careers off the back of how well they're doing the international break. James Rodriguez pops on mind straight away, and how well he did, and how much hype he did of playing internationally for his country. So there's definitely positives to it, but I need to get people's thoughts and feelings on it, because some people will say, no, I'd rather my players to stay with my team. Fair enough, Ben White hasn't been selected, but maybe it's a good thing, because he's going to be with the team and fit and ready for the games when they're coming for Arsenal.
Listen, when these guys go abroad, there's always a risk of injury, there's always a risk of flights getting delayed and things not going right, and so they come back late and it disrupts their domestic club's preparations. There's always that concern. However, you do want to see your players in your team play for it. It's a good sign. It shows that A, they are attaining, the top standards in football, and B, you will often hear players saying, I want to play for a team. I want to be playing regularly, so it will enhance my chances of getting in a national team. So all those things are good things, really. You don't really want a first 11 where none of them are representing their countries, because you're thinking, right, well, are they that good?
Yeah, that's when fans will jump. And you know what? It's such a double-edged sword, because there'll be fans saying, yeah, but he doesn't represent his country. What do you do for it? Yeah, so you're right there. You're right in that aspect. But
I would add as well, I don't want to belabor the point, but I would add that with Brazil, it's a slightly unique situation because their squad is so strong, especially in attacking options, that people are looking at the fact that the two Gabriels were left out top, and also Gabriel Magalhaes left out. But Brazil's squad is such that they could probably pick 3 teams. So it could well be that the manager's looking at different players. He already knows what to expect from Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli and Gabriel Magalhaes. So he's looking at other options in those. Because let's face it, the World Cup's just around the corner. Managers have to give everybody a chance and look at different players in different positions, and so that there's, because such an important competition, they have to get it right.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's very true. But like I said, there was some word about Edu maybe speaking to the Brazil manager and putting a little,
We'd like to think so.
I beg you just leave them away for a little piece, because we're going to need them. We're going to need them for the upcoming fixtures. Now, there's a comment here actually that's very interesting. Rodney says meaningless international friendlies make no sense.
Yeah, but
no logic whatsoever.
What to us might be a meaningless friendly is not to those players, because as I said before, a lot of players consider the representing their country at international level as the highest honour in football. They really do believe that. So some of the friendlies, I get it, far-flung places, you think, and some of the players at times will voice that.
Yeah.
And the managers will certainly voice that and say, well, we're releasing him to play, against, I'm not going to name any country, I don't want to appear disrespectful, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so, no, I 100% agree and understand what you're trying to say there, Laurie. I'm going to kind of round up with some super chats, but just to get a flavour of what this show is about, I've got some comments here. One says, so Coasters for Life says, Ben White is very underrated. And then just if you scroll up just a little bit, from RIP Swish 80 says, Ben White is overrated. So this is kind of the feel of what the show is today.
It's quite polarising,
isn't it? It's interesting, isn't it?
Because
it's splitting a lot of people's, decisions. I mean, the poll did... I think it finished 29% in favour of Ben White, that he's disrespected. But if you see the comments, it's very split.
Listen, he's having a good season, and if he continues the way he's going, he will get capped for England. However, if you're Ben White, you're thinking to yourself, I want to be part of that World Cup squad that gets on the plane to go to Qatar later on this year. So he'll probably be a bit concerned that he's been left out, to be honest. I bet in a quiet moment he's quite disappointed, and I dare say when he looks at the defenders that have been selected ahead of him, he's probably thinking, you know what, I've been better than them man there.
I wonder if he does go.
I'm sure he does. He's a human being.
I really wonder if depending on obviously how well the players that have been...
In case you're wondering, people, an alarm's gone off outside, so it's not in this building.
I was just going to ignore it, but yeah.
There's not a fire going on.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the players that have been selected in this position, how they do, and if that does affect the actual final decision. Just to round up, let me get these super chats. So we've got one from Red Square, says, if Gareth Southgate does not get to the semis minimum, should he go? Take into account this is the best attacking talent in generations.
I think that's a fair comment. I would expect England to get to at least the quarters anyway, at least.
When we had that golden era of England players, we didn't do too much in it. It's difficult, isn't it? I suppose because the expectations are going to be higher because of what happened with the Euros. Semis, quarters. I'll go probably to quarters.
Bare minimum is quarters. But I'll be expecting England to be in that.
The semis of the World Cup, yeah? There's a good team.
No, but bare minimum last eight, isn't it?
I'm saying quarterfinals. I think quarterfinals is
depending on who you come up against in the semi-finals. Now that you could draw Brazil,
but there's also good nations. There's very good nations in the World Cup. But I think quarterfinals is fair. I think semis.
But I think if we was to get knocked out before the quarterfinal stage, that would be deemed pretty universally as a bit of a disaster. And when you consider that there's a lot of people who felt, as well as we did in the World Cup 4 years ago and in the Euros, where we got to the final, that we underachieved. I mean, let's be honest,
we did. We should have won. We should have won the Euros. We should have won the Euros.
Should have beaten Italy at home. There's no doubt.
An aging side. I watched them in the Felicissimo against Argentina. Got absolutely battered. I was thinking, how did we lose? How did we lose to these guys?
Especially when you're 1-0 up at home.
Right.
Things are going your way. It's almost like we snatched defeat out the jaws of victory in the game, and that kind of left a bit of a poor taste in my mouth. As well as that, I think the World Cup, if we're being honest, Croatia, really, we should really have beaten them, shouldn't we? Croatia are a good side.
They're a good side.
But I think, you know what I mean? So
France
what I'm saying
in that competition
is, I say
well,
that to say this. If we go into this tournament and we don't achieve what people think is the bare minimum. We haven't got the home
advantage though. We're not at Wembley. They're in Qatar, so there's the difference to, you know, what we had in the Euros. Is that a factor?
It is a factor, but it shouldn't be a factor that should stop us from getting to at least the quarterfinals.
Sound like tight, at least. At least.
Seriously though, people, what do you think, bro? I mean, listen, if we don't, come on, bro. The optics of that, we don't get to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. You don't make the last eight. Come on now. You'd have to go for me, but maybe you won't. I mean...
Okay. Shref says, with the final super chat, says, Gareth is a bum. A sad excuse for a coach and won't get
a bit harsh.
Past quarterfinals. Well, there you go. That's our bare minimum right now.
That is the bare minimum.
Wait till you get tough group in the World Cup. Ben is way ahead of Maguire as a player. Gareth out. Well...
I would say this, as a footballer, he is definitely superior to Harry 100%. Maguire. But then Harry Maguire has other attributes.
No, I don't know. Like what, man?
I'll tell you.
Go on.
He's a bigger, stronger guy. He's better in the air. And, you know what I mean?
He is actually,
it depends on who you put in next to him. See, in those positions as well, it's about partnerships, who you line up with. A bit like what we were saying at Arsenal when I said that if you're looking at physicality, then you're going to go for Gabriel over Ben White when you're talking about Ivan Toney. So it's a similar thing for England. And then, like I said, I think Gareth Southgate has made it clear that he's going to play players that in the past has performed for him, which is why Maguire, to a lot of people's surprise and chagrin, is still involved.
Listen, 100%. We are coming towards the end of the show, and just quickly on that, Abdullah with a super chat says, other than scoring a few goals with his head, let's just say that because that's one thing you can mention. What football attributes does Maguire have over White? Humour me, guys. Name one. Won't find any. Well, Laurie seems like he has the answers.
I'm just giving you a couple, man.
But for me, I'm not hearing it. I'll be honest.
And let's be honest, those goals that he got for England, man, were crucial moments. Goals win games.
That's what I think, Abdullah, and we're kind of agreeing. I'll give you that. Heading the attributes when it comes to scoring goals, but apart from that, as a player,
as a footballer, all day long, Ben White is more gifted. That's
more agile, more. Anyway, but
but it's not always about that, is it? Especially in the defenders' positions, it's about defending and
which Ben White I think trumps him on.
Okay,
but that's my opinion.
No, that's cool. That's cool that you feel that way.
All right, listen. Thank you everyone for joining us for this live. Laurie, especially you as well.
Respect, bro.
Big respect. Thank you for bringing in your revision. We love it. We do love it.
School, man.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Do like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the notification bell as well. There's a lot of big things coming. I keep always talking about it every time I'm on the show. Coming to AFTV, so look out for it. Honestly, some big interviews and some new technology coming your way. Obviously, we're building up for Sunday's game against Brentford, so look out for all the content coming your way as well, guys. Thank you for joining me. It feels good to be back, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care.